What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GSN Sports Network podcast. I'm your host, John J. II. Welcome to the episode 123 of the GSN Pod. Wow, we've been doing this for a long time. This isn't our first rodeo. Maybe I've said that before, but just wanted to welcome you to 2026, the year of our Lord. And it's a brand new year. I hope you're sticking with your New Year's resolutions if you made one. The gyms are already emptying out in droves just because I knew they would. And we're 2 weeks into the new year. Now, the 1st through the 7th, they were packed. Okay. They started to dwindle out. And now that we're 2 weeks into the new year, they're practically what they were on the 21st of December of 2025. So I'm happy that they're clearing up again. Makes me feel good. It helps the machines cleared up. Make sure that the benches are clearing up for me, and the guys too. Got a strong core of guys that we work out with at the Y. So we enjoy that, and I encourage you to stick with your New Year's resolutions. But I know people aren't going to. It's just one of those things. People don't do it. So don't be the norm. Stand out from the crowd. All right. So we want to talk about, first and foremost, we want to talk about the Indiana Hoosiers and a question that we posed here on this show probably a month ago. It might have been more than that because we wanted to just pose the question, is Curt Cignetti him? Well, I'm going to answer that for you. Curt Cignetti is him. Okay. He's proven that. They made the Oregon Ducks look like a rec league team, maybe even a high school team. All right. They made him look like that bad of a team. They basically dominated them. And now they go on to the national championship game against the Miami Hurricanes. So just to talk about Coach Cignetti, he is him. Okay. Just to answer that question again, Curt Cignetti is him. Now, he talks a lot of shit. He's very pompous, very arrogant. You might even go as far as to say that he's arrogant. But I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to call him poised. I'm going to say that he's poised because I like the way he carries himself. And yeah, all right, we've dealt with a lot of people in the past, and we always do in the world of sports, whether they're coaches, whether they're players, whether they're fans, sports bettors, guys that are enthusiasts of the game. These people fit the category of pompous, egotistical, and arrogant. Okay, it's these are common terms that are used to basically represent these individuals and express who they are and why they are the way they are. But I'm not going to say that about Curt Cignetti because he's a poised coach. He's a guy that knows how good he is. He lets the numbers speak for themselves, and maybe he talks a little shit along the way. But he's going to do that because that's his style and that's how he carries himself. The Hoosiers go into the national championship game as 8.5-point favorites, a spread that I thought was kind of shocking. Okay, I thought it was shocking. I thought it would be a little bit tighter than that. Looking at Carson Beck and seeing what he's been able to do over there in Miami, but at the same time they've struggled. They've dealt with their hurdles, and at the same time they have their own struggles they're dealing with. Indiana, on the other hand, they're firing on all cylinders. Okay, so I'm really not worried about Indiana in this game. At an 8.5-point spread, maybe I'm not going to take that. We got to let that marinate a little bit and let that kind of bleed out through the weekend. And maybe you'll have to circle back with me on Monday, and I'll let you know where I'm at. But right now I'm not there with 8.5 for the Indiana Hoosiers, at least to take them against the spread. So we got to take that with a grain of salt, at least looking at that spread right here on Wednesday, the 14th of January. So, yeah, to answer your question, to answer a lot of people's questions that have been asking this exact question, is Curt Cignetti him? Yes. Yes, he is. And whether he's egotistical and pompous or not, that's your prerogative, whether you want to express him in that way. He talks a lot of shit, all right? We dealt with athletes. Okay, I used to hate Jorge Masvidal in the UFC, game bred, and now he's my favorite UFC fighter ever. Now he's retired and doing a lot of great things for his community in the fighting world. and everywhere, doing what he's doing. And really, once you get to learn to know the guy, know the individual, see them beyond the playing field or the playing surface or the octagon or the court, whatever it may be, you begin to peel back some layers and you begin to understand the individual a little bit more. So it's not always what meets the eye. Same thing. Another perfect example. Another perfect example. We just rewatched the clip is Richard Sherman. Okay, now you look at Richard Sherman. He's one of the most upstanding guys that you'd ever meet. You meet him on the street and be like, wow, this guy's just a great human being. But you go back several years, probably the better part of a decade ago, and you watch the interview with Skip Bayless, and now you watch the interview that took place with Skip Bayless and Richard Sherman about, let's say, 2 years ago. I just watched the clip, the updated clip from the, basically the post or the recap interview after X amount of years went by. And it's a completely different conversation. And they get to explain what happened in the green room a little bit more than what we saw with Stephen A., Richard Sherman, and Skip Bayless. So there's a lot more that meets the eye most of the time. So take that into account and let actions and words compound upon themselves before you really draw conclusions about anybody. You know what I mean? So take that into account. The over-under for the Indiana-Miami game is 48.5. I think that has potential of being close to it. Okay. Now, I really like the numbers we're dealing with here. Maybe we can expect to push that over a little bit just because it seems a little bit high, especially for a college football playoff game. Now, you could say that it's high. You could argue, hey, this is a high over-under. Okay. But at the same time, Indiana crushed Oregon 56-22. All right. And yes, this is a different matchup. This is different stakes. Indiana hasn't been here forever. Okay. And it's really a numbers game. At this point in the season, it's a numbers game and it's a feel game. How do I feel about the game going into it? And looking at the weapons, looking at the dominance, looking at the ability to deal with adversity and to really power through some of the BS that you might deal with throughout the course of the game. So I like what we're dealing with here. We'll just have to wait and see what happens going into it. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any picks for this game. Let me know where your head's at. Just because there's a lot to unpack with these two teams. You haven't seen these two teams even play each other in a long time. So it's going to be a good game. It's nice. It's a good breath of fresh air to not see Alabama, not see Georgia, and, God forbid, see Michigan in the championship game. No, I'm just kidding. All right. They're dealing with enough bullshit over there in Ann Arbor. I'm not going to pile on like a lot of Michigan fans have done about the situation in East Lansing. Now, with Pat Fitzgerald over there in East Lansing, I think we're in good hands. And just like Michigan is, I think they're in good hands with Kyle Whittingham. I was a huge Utah fan. Okay. And he did a hell of a job over there at Utah. And they're in good hands. I think both teams, both programs are in a lot better hands than they were 6 months ago. Both programs. All right. And now I think Michigan State, I think this is the first good hire since D'Antonio that they've gotten East Lansing for a football coach. Wasn't a big fan of Mel Tucker. I jumped on board with him. Obviously, he's wearing the green and white. He's the head honcho on the sidelines. You're gonna have to back the guy whether you like him or not. And same thing with Jonathan Smith. Wasn't a big fan of the guy. I didn't see him as a guy that bled the green and white. And you got to see the coach bleed the colors of the team. And it can't be bullshit either. You got to truly see them bleed the colors of the university. And if they don't do that, then they're not the guy for the job. They're not going to pan out. They're not going to be a long-term guy, a long-term hire. So these are all things that have to be considered when you're making a hire. I think it should be a prerequisite, not just what you did at your last school. All right, what's your track record? I want to know that you're going to bleed the colors of this university. And if that's not going to be the case, then I don't want you. All right, so that's a question that has to be asked, and I think it has to be displayed because in both regards. And I think Sharon Moore did bleed the maize and blue. I do. I think Michigan fans would even support that idea. But others might think he did it. So make a judgment call on it. And I think if you are an AD or if you're a higher up in the university, then you got to be able to make a judgment call on that because there's going to be a ripple effect based on those questions, whether they're asked or not, and those answers that you get in the interview process. So we'll have to see what happens come this season, this fall. In the NBA, the Detroit Pistons are the leaders at 28-10 in the Eastern Conference, with the coveted New York Knicks at 25-14, close behind them, and the Boston Celtics in third. There's a lot of guys that are saying, can the Pistons? They're asking, can the Pistons withstand the lull from basically January throughout the better part of April, where you're really starting to do some playoff projections? And that answer is yet to be determined because I want to see that this team can, one, stay healthy, two, stay energized. All right. You got to stay energized. You got to stay hungry, and you got to keep the will to win. Now, I'm really counting on JB Bickerstaff to hold the rope in that regard because he has to be the guy that sets the tone. He has to be the guy that's in the locker room and he's making the calls and making the decisions and chewing ass on the sidelines in the locker room and telling Cade that basically this is your team. Okay? Cade Cunningham, this is your team. Now, we've seen you drop the ball, and we'll call it the basketball in this case, but for the sake of the analogy, you drop the general ball of basketball, which tells me that you weren't there. You weren't there when you played the Knicks last season. Okay. Now I want to see you be him. Okay. Take notes from Kurt Signetti's handbook because I want to see Cade Cunningham be him. He has to be him for the Detroit Pistons to be well, whether he's on the court or not. He's got to be a facilitator. He's got to be a leader. He's got to be a role model for these younger guys and even the guys that have been there to say, hey, if we take it on the nose a couple games, even in games we should win, we got to pick ourselves back up and figure it out because, I'm that guy that has to make that decision. I got to be able to put the team on my back if I have to, especially if I'm playing. So I'm looking forward to Cade being that guy, being him, and taking on the role of him a little bit more this year. So that's something that I'm expecting him to do, and he's going to have to do. He's really going to have to do it. So I'm counting on him big time. I know Detroit Pistons fans are. I got to touch base with my boy Chris Platty. He's a big Pistons guy working down there at Woodward and doing some great things with his own podcast. So I got to talk to him and see where his head's at and where he can tell me Cade and the rest of the Pistons' heads are at because he'll have a better judgment call than I will. So looking forward, we got to look at the PGA Tour, which all starts this weekend at the Sony Open at Wailea. Okay, Wailea Country Club in Hawaii. It kicks off the 2026 PGA Tour season. And to make a big announcement, I'll make it big. I'll make it monumental. And that is Sobo and I have joined forces to be in a season-long golf pool that involves every PGA Tour event, majors included. And we got to do a lot of research. This is a very big undertaking that we've taken on upon ourselves. So it's added to my workload, added to my list of things to do. But it's a good thing. I think it'll keep me more in tune with the game than more or less being a fair weather PGA Tour guy. Okay, now especially when we're looking at players like Brooks Koepka making the move back to the PGA Tour from the LIV Tour, it should open our eyes a little bit with what's happening with the bigger picture of things. Now, it's been debated. Should we have let Brooksy come back nice and easily? What was the penalties for leaving the tour and now getting reinstated at the PGA Tour? I don't know the specifics of that. I'm sure the information's out there or it's yet to be determined or released. But I think the penalty should be the initiation fee that Live paid you initially to join Live. Essentially, leave the Legacy Tour, leave the PGA Tour that built professional golf, and join the tour that's basically built upon nothing other than money. Now, there should be a penalty, I think, for leaving the tour because I gotta assume the guys that stayed home, the Rory McIlroys, the Tommy Fleetwoods, the Kevin Kisners, all right, and the list goes on and on of the guys that did stay. Okay, they got to be a little bit bitter about some of these guys that were staples in the PGA Tour leaving, jumping ship, and chasing the bag at the Live Tour. They got to be bitter about it. Okay, so I want to understand some of the fallout from that. I know that there's still bad blood with the PGA Tour and Live, especially since the merger never really panned out. But without getting too much off topic, I can get fired up and take a whole hour up talking about that. We're not going to do that tonight. But the Sony Open kicks off the PGA Tour 2026 season, and we're expected to see fireworks. Now, you got an interesting course at Wiley. Nick Taylor looks to defend his title as he won in 2025. He won a playoff over Nico Echeverria. And can we expect a playoff again? We got to be tracking cuts. Who's making cuts? Who's making moves? Who's hitting the most greens, fairways, etc. We're tracking these stats very closely. We're watching this stuff, and that's the beauty of golf. Is yes, these things can be tracked. These individuals, these guys that play the sport, they play better on certain courses, and they've broken down the game to a very simple science. It's not like you or me if we go out and we just hope we break 40 or break 50 or break 45. No, these guys are breaking it down to a fundamental process, and that's what they're doing. So these stats can be tracked and they can be utilized in future events a lot better than amateur stats can be used. So, but that doesn't go without saying, a guy can be hot one week and be trash the next week. So you got to be able to track these trends and take them with a grain of salt while also utilizing the important stuff. So we're looking forward to that. That takes place and tees off tomorrow night, I believe. So be on the lookout for that one. Moving forward, let's talk about Tomlin out as the Pittsburgh head coach. Head coach will not coach in 2026 per reports. Now, Mike Tomlin is obviously a staple. He is one of only 4 coaches that have been hired since 1969 in Pittsburgh. Now, I know the terrible towel swingers, they're probably not too happy about this, and you don't usually see this happen. He's young 50s, leaving under his own will, and he's been with the franchise forever. But you got to think, okay, if you're with any team for that amount of time, there's got to be some pressure on you. There's got to be some expectations. Obviously, he never had a losing season, which that's something he wants to hang his hat on. And he should. All right, he should. He deserves to take a year and decompress. I think he'll have the itch to come back maybe before that, maybe before a year off, just because when you bleed and breathe and sleep football for that long, it's hard to walk away from it. It's not like there's any outside factors that I know of that are causing him to walk away from the game. And you know damn well any team that's looking for a head coach, shit, pro or college for that matter, they'd be happy to give Mike Tomlin an interview. They might even hand him the keys without many questions, just because of what he's been able to do, how he's been able to facilitate teams, how he's been able to deal with changes, personnel changes, coaching changes, etc. Guys come and go. It's just one of those things that you deal with. We seem to have lost camera here. Hold on. Please bear with me. We're just gonna switch webcams because why not? Actually, no, just fire back up. Technical difficulties. That's the beauty of this. We're live. There's no there's no backup crew. All right, there's no backup crew. We gotta fix our own fumbles. I think it's a great time to pop a zen. Okay, now we call it taking a zen break. You might call them zins. We call them zens. All right. Spice cider, 3 milligram. Now we got these part of a holiday special, right? Holiday special. Holidays are over. I'm still in the holiday spirit. All right, that's where we're at. Now you might say, John, that's kind of going back. That's going back into the fall. All right, you're going back into the fall. Spice cider brings you fall vibes. Yeah, maybe it does. But at the same time, I enjoy cider any time of the year. Okay, preferably hot cider, preferably spiked, maybe a shot of Fireball, what have you. That's what we enjoy from time to time. Everything in moderation. But Zen spice cider, very good, explosive flavor. If you're a cider guy or gal, give it a try. Give it a try. And I'm not sponsored by Zen, so take that with a grain of salt. Let's look at men's college basketball. Obviously, we're going to be taking a look at the Big Ten. Okay, that's what we do. We take a look at the Big Ten, see who's dominating, see who's falling short. Now, Wisconsin won a big game against Minnesota the other day or yesterday, and that really could have went either way. That was a big win for them. And honestly, Minnesota should have won that game. They should have won that game with how they were playing, how they were dominating, essentially. They let Nebraska right back into it. Same thing with Indiana. Indiana did the same thing earlier in the week. And this shouldn't have happened, okay? Nebraska is dominating the entire landscape right now. They're sitting at 17-0, 6-0 in the conference. Okay, they beat Michigan State. Yes, they did. It was a nail biter. It came down to Carson Cooper, which it never should. And for some reason, he was the guy. And I don't know who I blame there. I want to say it was Jeremy Fears, but somebody dished the ball to him in a very unopportune time. And basically that screwed the pooch for the entire game after that. And if you can't dominate and put yourself in a position to win the game going into the last minute 30 of the game, then forget about it. You're fighting an uphill battle anyways. Okay, you're going to be working your ass off just to stay in the game and be in striking distance. Control the narrative, be up or be within striking distance going into it a minute left. They left too many things to chance, missed too many shots, missed too many free throws, missing layups, dunks, easy shit. It's like I begin to lose my mind with these guys. They begin to pick up the pieces, and they've done a lot better in subsequent games, but that was a big loss for the Spartans. Hats off to Nebraska, and the Cornhuskers are doing a hell of a job. Purdue sitting at 2, State at 3, Michigan at 4, and Illinois at 5. But there's a lot of games left. Obviously, we have our sights set on March. We always do. But there's a lot of games left, and that has to be acknowledged. We're getting into the thick of it. So going into the end of January and into February, we're going to have a lot of conference games. They really stack the conference games up. That's the most important time of the season to get those conference wins, to set yourself aside in seeding purposes. Now, you can look at it from a handicap standpoint, too. Do we win all the games now, or do we get a lesser seed so we can kind of be in the middle of the pack once March comes around? All right. You can look at it. There's a couple different schools of thought. Obviously, I think you want to still be a higher seed just because you're guaranteed a lower seed in that first round, maybe even a second round if you're lucky. But once you get in the third round, start getting a Sweet 16, Elite 8, then there's no doubt you're going to be playing some good teams because every team has to earn their spot. I'd say Sweet 16 on in. You're earning your spot. So take that into account and look at that and take that for what it's worth, depending on the school of thought you have. So we'll have this conversation again going into February. We'll talk again, and we'll chop it up, and we'll talk about why one school of thought might be better than the other. But I don't think any of them are wrong. I just think there might be an edge to one of them, depending on where you're at on the pendulum. So we'll have to wait and see. Have to wait and see. There's a lot of waiting going on. Okay, we got football. We get through football, and then our sights are set all the way through March is college basketball. Basically, all of March is college basketball. Okay, from February 8th on, so that's the day of the Super Bowl, that's nothing but college basketball and golf. Okay, you're focusing on college basketball. That's it. I'm not even worried about college football. I'm not worried about recruits. I'm not worried about coaching carousels and any of that shit. I'm looking at golf and college basketball. Basically, from the beginning of February, or maybe after the first weekend of February, all the way through the end of March. That's what we're focused on. And we breathe, we sleep, we eat, we do it all for college basketball. And maybe you got NBA in there too. You got some sprinklings of other sports, but it's mostly college basketball. So keep that in mind. And I hope that resonates with others that are involved, because college, let's be honest, college basketball is probably the best sport out there. And I might be going on a limb saying that. Okay, but you talk about sports seasons, and I'll go on the record with anybody. I'll go head to head with anybody on this. You talk about sports seasons, you talk about the caliber of sports seasons. There's nothing better than March Madness. And I'll go toe to toe with anybody about it. So if you want to be that guy or gal, then we can make it happen. We can make it happen. So looking at the NFL bracket, we have to consider the games that took place. Now, we're going to chop it up with Robert. We're going to talk about it again because obviously he has more of the keys than I do. He's the guy. He's the reigning pro capper champ. He wears the crown. He's actually in possession of the platinum platter as well. So the numbers and the accolades speak for themselves, at least in recent history. The Bills got away with one in Jacksonville. The Patriots dominated the Chargers. The Chargers might be the biggest fraud flop team in the NFL that made the playoffs that shouldn't have. Okay, now the Jaguars, at least they held their own. They probably arguably could have won that game, should have won that game. And the Bills are just not playing at the caliber that they should be playing at right now. Now, everybody knows I'm a Bills fan. Been a Bills fan for a long time. Okay. The Bills aren't where they should be right now. Now, to move in the right direction, to win a wild card game, that is a step in the right direction. But looking at the team where they're at is concerning. Very similar to the Rams. Okay, they squeak a win out against the Panthers, 34-31. Probably should have lost that game. That could have been a trap game that you might have picked. But you go against the spread on that one, or take the spread rather, for the Panthers' sake. Then you're going to be coming away with some money there if you take it straight. That was a 10.5 point spread. And the Rams just didn't perform like they should. The Bears, on the other hand, they came back and basically defied the odds. Okay, an NFC North matchup in the wild card. Just hats off to the Bears. That's all I'm going to say. The 49ers beat the Eagles outright. The Eagles are not where they should be either. They're dealing with some issues, I think, internally. And the Texans and the Steelers, that kind of speaks for itself. And we're not going to worry about that too much because obviously with the Mike Tomlin situation, and it was said, Adam Schefter said it, Tomlin was done. Tomlin has made this decision. This wasn't an overnight decision. This wasn't a decision they made, because we're out of the playoffs. No, this is a decision that's been marinating over the course of seasons, perhaps seasons, definitely months. So, and then that begs the question, what's the story for the future of Aaron Rodgers? That begs that question as well. So we have to wait and see. Lots to unpack with this one. I'm going to wait for Robert before we really do a deep dive into the remainder of the NFL playoffs going into Super Bowl Sunday. which is just under a month away from now. All right, so we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up with UFC 324, Pimblett and Gaethje. All right, now this is obviously the first. There's a lot of firsts going on. We're in January, first month of the year. There's a lot of firsts going on, a lot of openings, and that's no different for UFC. Okay, you got Justin Gaethje, Patty Pimblett. You also got the co-main event with Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes. That's gonna be a great one. And in the bantamweight, you got Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong. Okay, Sean O'Malley, he's got some redemption to reclaim, so I'm expecting that to happen. You also got Waldo Cortez Acosta against Derek Lewis, the big man in the heavyweight matchup. Then you got Arnold Allen and Gene Silva. And then you have the Alexa Grasso Rose Namajunas fight got canceled, unfortunately. I was looking forward to seeing Rose fight. I love watching Rose fight. She's just a performer. She's an entertainer. And for her size, she does a great job at the sport. And she's a great fighter. So we're looking at this one. I got to talk to my boy Denny and in foreign in the Discord about this because they're my UFC guys. Got to chop it up with them, and they got some big things coming in their world as well. So make sure to plug into them and see what they got going on. I'll be sure to share all their stuff. They're very plugged in, very intertwined with the UFC world. So we'll chop it up with them here in the coming weeks and relay that information as need be. Good deal. Well, I'm talking too much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys and welcome you guys to 2026. Brand new year, brand new expectations, brand new goals for all of us. Stick to your resolutions. Stick to what you sworn to yourself to accomplish this year and do everything you have to do to accomplish those goals. And make sure to check us out on our website, ginsportsnetwork.com. Find us on Instagram at ginsportsnetwork and find my personal Instagram at gincommish. And we'll see you guys here next time on the Gin Sports Network podcast. For now, I'm John J. II with the GSN Pod. We'll see you here next time. Have a great night.